what's most exciting at ITMA as well? We could start with you, Jos.
My name is Notermans. I'm from SPG Prints, formerly Stork. We run this show here on the ITMA with the team All You Need in Printing, meaning we do digital as well as rotary printing, show the latest developments there. Myself, I am 32 years in digital textile printing, so it's not that new. Yeah, we are very excited about the amount of people that we get, so I'm happy we build a very big booth. I think you cannot miss it. And also surprised to see Michael Raymond here, because we are basically working together there, but we will address that probably a bit later.
Yeah.
Rich Thompson, I'm the CEO of AEOON North America, not AEON Austria. That's, it'd be nice, but I'm not. So AEOON, we make industrial direct-to-garment printers. We make peripheral products to support those printers. We make flatbread printers. I can give you the big marketing spiel, but I see that some of my former coworkers from my previous company, Kornit, are here, so I won't do that. So prior to AEOON, I was president of Kornit North America. And in reference to ITMA, the exponential improvements of equipment it's fascinating. It's unbelievable the way the market is really evolving at such a rapid rate.
Mike?
I'm Mike Raymond, sales manager for the Americas for Xaar. Xaar is a leading provider of inkjet printhead technology. We design, manufacture, market, and sell our printhead technology worldwide into all markets. We're here at ITMA announcing new technology for textile printing with our new 5601 and 1201 silicon MEMS thin film piezo product. And what do I see at this show? I see a lot more crowds in the digital hall than any other hall, which is great to see. I do see a lot more products here for digital printing, higher speeds, better quality, better workflows, better software, better color management. So in 4 years' time, you're seeing a huge improvement and a movement forward in the digital space technology.
Yeah. And
hello, everybody. I am Luca from Inedit Software. We are a Barcelona-based company. We've been providing software solutions for the digital textile market for more than 27 years now. I'm responsible for key account in Europe, Middle East, and Asia. And this is my second ITMA, so I didn't see many ITMA so far, but what I can tell is that in the last 4 years, definitely I saw a lot of improvements from the technology. So we work very much with machine manufacturers. There are some very interesting new solutions at the moment, but what I would like to point out is that definitely there are new solutions to connect workflow and create more stable workflow that really connect the different variables of digital textile printing. And that's definitely something new that I didn't see in Milan for 3 years before.
Brilliant. I'll start off by asking the audience if there's any questions for you guys. I do have some pre-prepared questions, of course, but I think we had some great interaction before. So does anybody have any questions for the panels about new technologies or anything we've discussed in any of the previous sessions that you'd like to get their opinion on? Because after lunch, everyone's digesting. Okay, so my first question then is, obviously we've talked a lot about on-demand in the presentations that have preceded our panel session. And it's likely that that'll be a crucial part of the textile and apparel sector going forward. Do you think that that's the right direction for the industry to go in? You know, we've discussed micro factories and the scalability. Do we want more distributed manufacturing? Is it going to be possible in the near future to have that on a sort of mass customization kind of scale? What are your perspectives on on-demand and that kind of change in the sector? Who would like to start?
All right. Well, I'll give it from a U.S. perspective. So I'm more familiar with the U.S. market, and as far as microfactories and small scale production, the direct-to-garment market in the U.S. Has always been in that, has always been working in that space. So as far as microfactories, direct-to-garment and screen printing, which has been rapidly moving to digital printing, has been there, and it's a very large market with the brands drawing off of that. Why? Why is that such a big market? Because it's direct-to-garment, it's printing after cut and sew. So the cut and sew operation is done in low labor markets. The blanks are brought in to the U.S. The brands are able to customize on site, distribute their products, and so now the next step is, of course, automating the cut and sew and bringing that level of automation, reshoring those operations, bringing the roll-to-roll print operations back in like they used to be up until the early 2000s and before everything went to China, and that's the direction we're going in.
And do you think that you're based in the US? Do you see
Yeah,
that kind of
from a DTG perspective, it's going exponentially. The number of digital prints produced versus screen, I mean, the t-shirt market overall in the U.S. is growing. So it's growing at high single digits to low double digits, whatever you want to do, whatever factor you use to base that. Of that, the digital print growth within that growing market is high double digits. So the adoption is there. You're bringing new massive customers into this space, and their goal is actually to be able to improve their ability to service their customers within hours. So now we have this. The big thing in the U.S. from a DTG standpoint is sure we can print and ship in 24 hours. Now they're talking print and ship in 4 hours. So one of the examples of one of the large customers that we were just at said he wants to be able when Marvel's Endgame came out to be able to deliver 14 T-shirts to the young man that was having a party there that were all customized with his name on it. Drop it off with a drone. You probably know who it is, and that's their idea, and that's where they're going. So yes, the evolution is there from a reshoring textiles and bringing basically Fabric Row back to North Carolina. I think that's a great plan, but I think there's a lot of work to do that still.
Yeah.
We are, with our own products, we are not serving that market because we are in big volumes. So we see other trends like, and it was mentioned, the reshoring to serve the markets quicker. I think that this micro factory of very customized textiles is really filling a certain need, but it will not be replacing. I also sense that people often think of technologies that one is replacing the other, and in practice, after a while, you find out that they are, to a large extent, complementary. So if you see the first speaker, he was talking about the number of garments that a woman has in her closet. Mm-hmm. Those will never be all customized micro factory products. So there's still a big bulk, but there we clearly see that they are looking to be closer to the end customer. So we see part of it, of the reshoring, we see definitely with our customers, and their digital is giving them a big help to get that done. But as long as you print reactives, which still a lot of the market is doing, and our customers, you're still sitting with steaming and washing. And you were mentioning in America, well, all the steamers and washers are gone in America. So they were probably also sold as second-hand to Asia. So a big challenge in technology-wise will be to, in the long term, to get rid of that kind of workflow. So we see really a shift where, yeah, in this 32 years that I was in it, I think 30 years when the topic was machines are too slow and the inks are too expensive. And we are addressing now that is behind us. So we're talking about other things now, and that is sustainability, and that is reliability of the technology, and so on. And there we see a lot of developments going on. So it's a shift of where technology is serving.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luca, from a software perspective, I guess you have to tap into the e-commerce platforms that are coming up as well. How kind of challenging is that, and how progressive is it from an on-demand perspective?
Well, I totally agree that this is a trend that it's happening now, and we still serve both kind of customers, like big old-style customer with huge productions, and also micro factories. The new technologies also allow to have micro factories in different locations. Now we have the proper technology to share files within different locations. and manage colors and production. But I would say that the big issue that we see is really create color management workflow that are reliable within different locations. And we are working in that direction. So image sharing and color control, not only on the printer, but also on the designing side. So what we're trying to do is really to connect the creativity side with the production side, even if it's not in the same exact plant, in the same exact location. So that's the future for sure. E-commerce, web to print, we see a lot of, let's say, a piece-to-piece approach in the majority of our, especially Europe, of course. And, well, that's definitely something to take into consideration for the future.
Yeah. And when it comes to workflow across the board, so not just for on-demand, but also for the industrial scale production, what do each of your customers find particularly challenging? You know, what kind of answers are your technology trying to find to their workflow problems today, not for the future necessarily, but as soon as possible, I guess?
Well, for me, it's quite easy. It's stability.
Everything.
Stability in printing, stability of the process. We've been seeing this morning that digital printing is not that easy. You have a lot of variables involved, and all those variables must be, of course, of good quality and must be controlled, and you have to take into consideration a lot of aspects when it comes to printing, and stability and understanding of the workflow is still a big issue for the software provider. So yeah, I would say stability for sure, know-how, and controlling the full workflow. That's are the biggest challenges of the market.
Yeah, from our standpoint, the biggest issue, and you mentioned it before, was speed, cost per print. So now what it is a matter of getting from that floor footprint, that economic earning out of that footprint, so you have to eliminate waste. So from an internal standpoint, come by our booth and see the new Kyo link. It actually helps the operator ensure it's 2 or 3 more checks to make sure they're putting the right image on the right garment. Because that is, you'll never be able, I shouldn't say never, but there's not really a path to take that away in the next, I'd say, 3 years to take the human element out. So anything we can do to eliminate errors, obviously the table stakes have all risen within the marketplace from a manufacturing standpoint, that the machines need to be stable, they need to run. I would say that probably was not the same feeling of people that bought DTG equipment in our space about 5 years ago. So that has all gotten to a point now where now the machines are stable, they run, your cost per prints are continue to go down, your rips are getting better, you can operate and be able to workflow, but you have to take that human element and basically almost make it dummy proof.
I think that there's still a lot of ground to be covered there. If I look to our, let's say, traditional textile printing companies, then some of them just went from their paper order guidance cards to Excel, and they have no clue what else is there to be done. And then they ask us, okay, can we read the ink consumption out of the machine? Yeah, we can calculate what the ink consumption is based on the file, but if I really want to know the total ink consumption, including the waste, you need to build something into your printers to have that real number. And so we do see more and more questions coming in that direction, but I think a lot of win is there still to be done. It is, talking for our customers, it's still in its infancy.
Well, it's good. I'm glad I'm last because I'm hearing the problems that we're addressing with our technology, and it's, I hear stability, consistency, I hear waste reduction. Our new technology, our through-flow technology, keeps ink circulating through the print head in the printers, so that keeps the nozzles open, so you don't, because if you lose a nozzle or two, you got waste, right? So color consistency, we have AccuDrop technology, so that we have the ability now to align every nozzle in the print head and individually, so that we can get uniformity across that print head and uniformity from print head to print head. So you're going to get the color consistency and the tones and the gradients that you want on a consistent basis. So we're addressing the internals of the machine, the core technology, which is the print head, to address some of these issues. Our thin film piezo silicon MEMS manufacturing process is allowing us to print at higher resolutions, higher density nozzles with smaller drops. What's that do for you? It allows you to have a higher inking rate if you need it, or actually can actually use less ink, but it can also give you more colors and more space to work with from the front end. So this new technology coming to market, plus we have the plug and play, which is our Z shape on the printhead. And so what allows you is to change the printhead very quickly, and using the AccuDrop technology and the through-flow technology to bring that printhead back up and running. So we're eliminating the downtime on the printer at the same time, and making sure that your operation is always up and running.
I had this morning a discussion with somebody I know for a long time, and he was asking me, we were talking about the color control, and of course then you talk about color management software and so on. And we said, yeah, but you can measure your color book, and from that knowing very accurate how to match it. But if then you lose random a couple of nozzles, then the actual color laydown will be different than what you think it is, so you will get a difference in color. And he was asking me, but yeah, you made the proofers in the past for DuPont, and they were very accurate. Why can't you do it with these machines? And I said, yeah, well, at that time we had 192 nozzles to control, and now we have 500,000 nozzles to control. And so I really think that one of the next steps is control by the nozzle, as Xaar is now also doing, and a lot of automation in that to be sure that, yeah, coming back to my statement, it moves from speed to reliability, and technology is going to play a very big role in that part. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept to control the individual nozzles.
Yeah.
So I like that as a step forward for,
Yeah.
for
But
the
if you look in the Pike system, there are 258 heads. Each has 2,048 nozzles, so you can make the calculation.
That's easy. It's
600
easy, Jos. I don't know why you're not doing it
nozzles.
already.
Yeah. You cannot control that by hand anymore.
Are there any questions from the audience for the panelists on these kind of topics? Oh, it's from Aki as well. This will be good.
It should be an easy one, Aki.
What?
Only easy questions, please.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes. Yeah, I have a question to Jos and maybe Luca. In this ITMA, I had a meeting with some Russian design house who is providing the design and let somebody print, but it's not a small company, it's a big volume, roughly 20 million meters per year. And they have some, not a subsidiary, but maybe some factory, outsourced factory, somewhere in Asia, not just a single one, maybe some others. And they always have some problem with the color matching, you have just talked. It's one time it's good, and next time it's different, and from factory to factory it's different. I think as a printer manufacturer or provider, that Jos, and also maybe software provider, Inedit, do you think it's a good idea not asking you to do your own effort to train the customer, rather than that, to establish certain neutral organization to give them some standard lectures and make certain common knowledge base so that the people will not make same mistake again and again and again. Actually, I was involved in this industry for 20 years, inkjet and textile. And even today, there is people who want to start the textile printing digitally, making a same or similar mistake again and again. That seems one of the reasons why the penetration of digital is so slow. What do you think? Is there any difficulty?
There's a very simple answer. If the printer, if my printer always prints the same color, if I can guarantee that, then his software can make sure that we always print the same color on every part of the planet. That's a simple answer. The more complicated answer is that it's not only the printer, but it's the pre-treatment of the fabric. It's the fabric itself, the color of the fabric. Often it's the steaming and washing or whatever post-treatment that you have behind it. And some of you may remember that we launched in 2002 a digital textile printing plant in Thailand and connected it to a sampling bureau in New York City and one in the Netherlands and one in Sri Lanka. And we launched a concept called Stork UC, which was trying to provide exactly that. At that time, we found out that you can get it under control with color management software and with printers that you calibrate regularly. But at that time, we were solving a problem that nobody knew he was having or she was having. So it had limited success. We learned a lot about control in that, but I think now the time comes that this comes back. Maybe a bit of a side step there is that we recently see that a lot of people in reactive inks are moving from vinyl sulfonic D-black to monochlor triazine D-black. And one of the main drivers there is that although vinyl sulfonic D-black is better, is deeper black, it is more difficult to control. If you steam not exactly right, then your black can become pink or brown or whatever. For that reason, they are asking us now for an MCT black, because they say, okay, if I then have multiple machines at different locations, I'm much more sure that my color will always be the same. On the software side, you have to answer it, because we decided after this exercise not to make our own color management software, but leave it up to people that are software specialists.
What you say, Aki, is, in my opinion, that would be a great solution. Education is most of the time is the key for printing. I think one of the strong point of Inedit that we've been doing only textile for many years. So we know what are all the variables involved in printing. So we know that if today you're printing one color and tomorrow you're printing another one, it could be a software issue. It could be the pre-treatment, post-treatment. It could be the heating system if you're working in sublimation. There are many variables involved, and it's true that education is missing in many regions in the world. So I agree with you that that should be the solution. A big issue that we also encounter is that we do not provide only the product, but we provide also training. So we give to our customers all the tools to calibrate the machine, to reprofile the ICC. We teach them how to use our solutions, and we give them all the tools to be independent over time. Fact is that especially in Asia, which is my biggest market, people are changing very fast. So you train a team of technicians, you go back in a couple of months, and then you see different phases. Then again, I agree with you. Workshops, education, also joint education, because again, color matching is not only the software, it's printing, is print hats, is chemicals. There are a lot of variables involved, but making joint workshops would definitely help to improve stability in different regions of the world. And yeah, I agree with you.
Well, the human error part, I mean, that's the part you have to get rid of. But look at the way that textiles are to paper. There's, especially, again, I always bring it back to the DTG market, there's no standard for the actual last treatment that they put on a T-shirt.
I mean, for example, you know, viscose, you get from Asia,
Correct.
you get viscose from Europe or whatever else. They are viscose, but they are not all the same.
Right.
So it means, what I mean, it's when I prepare something for pre-treatment or post-treatment, that you need the time for the preparation. Some guys put some things inside, steer it for maybe 30 seconds, another 5 minutes, another 10 minutes. So, and I recognize that is the influence of the standard of your quality.
Well, one of the disadvantages of the word digital is that people mean digital is always plug and is always plug and play. You buy the printer, you plug it into the wall, you hit the start button, and it runs. Of course, it's a lot more complicated than that. And but I agree with you. We miss a standard in textiles. I also worked in the graphics industry where a lot more standards are there. And then when I came into the textiles, the only thing I sometimes heard was the Pantone book with delta E's of 10 between colors. And that was one of the reasons why we tried to launch this digital textile standard. But again, at that point in time, we were solving a problem that nobody knew exists. And maybe if we would redo that effort, then we might be more successful. We do also, just like Inedit, a lot of training. I have application specialists in Holland, but also all over the world, that do nothing else than helping the customer for the total workflow to give them advice. On-site, analyze what are you doing, and then giving advice. And I always tell those guys, you are written off on January 1st, because yeah, we take them as a cost. They are helping our customers to achieve the goal they need. But we don't charge our customers for that. It's part of the product that you have to that you are supplying, and yeah, we have to recover that cost with selling machines and inks.
I think there's a question at the front there as well.
Yes, so we've heard that the industry is growing very rapidly. We hear that over and over again. And I was curious about, for people that are selling these printers, at this point, are most of your sales to people who are brand new to digital printing and just getting into it? Or are you selling more machines to folks that are already doing digital printing and they're just looking to expand and upgrade their capabilities?
If I have to, I don't know the exact numbers, but if I have to estimate, I would say 90% we're selling to people who already have some experience in digital. You just see them moving from slower machines to faster machines, or expanding their production. The real newcomers is not that much anymore. I would say maybe 10%.
Yeah, so from a direct-to-garment standpoint, it's a 50-50 split. So it is true, it's a lot easier to sell a second machine to someone that's happy with their first machine. But I can use examples, and I use the same example. There's a gentleman that's been in business since 1986 that was never on my radar at Kornit, never on my radar here at AEON, and he picked up 5 machines. Like, I'm jumping in with both feet, right? So Dubuque, Iowa was probably the, I don't know, 120th small or 120th metro market in the U.S. So my assumption would be there's 119 bigger markets with guys just like that out there. So I will say that there's very few that are jumping in that have never done anything to a shirt before. He's got 500 heads of embroidery, so he does do garments. But majority, there are just as many people coming in new versus that exist. And there's people trading up and trading over and things like that going on in the industry.
Interesting. There's a question there. Oh.
Hi. I just wanted to go back to the topic of standards for just a second. I've heard people say this in the past, this sort of wish list of standards within the textile space, and I'm never really clear exactly what we're shooting for there. I feel like I could get on board with standardization if I knew what our targets were. So just as an example, I think one of the areas that I sometimes hear about is white point. So if you look at our particular business, I think for the most part, what we want in terms of white point on fabrics is often kind of different than what a signage company might want. We like warmer whites, stuff that looks more like a natural fiber. So that often is one of the first topics that seems to come up in regard to standards. And I wanted to learn more about what you all are thinking about when you use that phrase standards.
Well, from a direct-to-garment standpoint, if you're going to take a Hanes Nano, you're going to take a Gildan 5150, you're going to go get a Bella Canvas, a Cotton Heritage, black T-shirt, they could all have different softeners on top. They could have a silicant on top. The black could be dyed twice. The black could be dyed once. The black could have been a red shirt, and they had too many of them, so now they're going to dye them black. So there's no standard. At the end of the day, all we're saying is consistent. So it doesn't have to be that we want the same industry to do the same thing all the time, but we want the shirt manufacturers, from our standpoint, to do the same thing every time for the same stock number.
Okay, yeah, so I was thinking, what comes to my mind as well is consistency. Once we have figured out what we want and what's working, we want it to be as close to the same as possible every time, which I think is a little different
Well,
for,
the
in
problem-
our business.
For you guys, for sure, but for us, the issue is the shirt manufacturer wants a certain feel. So they're chasing that feel so the customer wants to use that garment, and the B2B side that they want to spec that garment. So they're always changing the cocktail. And that always, from a standpoint of digital printing, changes your outcome. Or you have to make adjustments. So you could run the same shirt for 6 months, and then all of a sudden get a new batch and be like, what happened? The red's pink. And then you can make that adjustment, but when you compare it to screen printing, the color doesn't change because of the way they apply it. So that's what we're up against from the digital standpoint in direct garment is, I never had that problem with screen. Well, I understand you didn't.
Yeah, thanks, that's helpful.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a good point, and from the answers, also with the previous one, you can see that by application can be completely different. What we are seeing is that I think I have more than 100 customers who all print volumes for Xaar. And I think that Xaar would love that they could blindly distribute orders over the customers and being sure that they all get the same, at least the same color gamut from all of these guys. But in practice, that's now not the case. So they're still sending physical samples which you have to match, which is slowing down the process and adding cost. So I think they would like to see a standard, and they try to drive standard. But if every brand starts to do that, then as a printer you are facing again 100 standards, which is not a standard. So it is complicating.
Luca, how can software help with this? Because I think we see, data collection from the fibre end of the market all the way through the fabric construction and then into the coloration process. Is there a way to harness data from other aspects of the supply chain in order to overcome these kind of standardization issues?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say that I agree with all of them. Like there is no standard from the industry, but for Inedit, the standard is the standard of the customer. So we go somewhere, they explain us what they want to do in terms of colors, in terms of workflow, and we adapt always to a different kind of standards. Actually, also in terms of profile creation for the printer, I don't want to get into technical stuff, but when you create a profile, there are different rendering intent which affect the final result. So in Inedit, what we do actually is to adapt the white point and the black point of the final profile according to the printer that we are calibrating. So also inside, we do not have a standard. Our black and white point always change according to the machine that we are printing, that we are calibrating according to that specific ink set, that specific substrate, and so on. So when I use the word standardized, for me is a standardized workflow. So our solution really connects the creative part with the printing, with the sharing. So we try to create a standard workflow in different customers, and those workflows are all different depending on the customer. But what we try to do is to help to make things easier inside the company. Then easy for you is different than easy for for another customer of ours.
That's super helpful, thank you. I have one more question. One of the other things that we don't come from the traditional sort of brand retail community, but I connect fairly regularly with colored people, and one of their primary criticisms of digital print is often, well, we would like to use digital samples, but we can't get the digital sample to, like, it's not representative of production. And in my mind, I think to myself, well, in the world of single pass, you could do your digital sample on your production machine with the same colorants, on the same substrates, and I just wondered, practically speaking, in the world of single pass, what would a digital sample look like? Would it be 100 yards? It's so fast. I just wonder, how is that feasible even? How would you manage that process, and how are people doing it?
But the customers that we have with single pass are, because of the technology, there's one limitation of it, and that is that you cannot change fabric all the time. So typically those people have a limited amount of fabrics that they are using. And the way they do their samples is they choose a time slot in the week, and then in that hour they print all the samples on that same machine. And they do that for exactly the reason that you are mentioning, that you are the most sure that the production will look the same as the sample. We also do have customers that use another scanning machine for that. Most of the time they already have it, so it means it has a different head technology. So they know that the image quality will not look the same if you look to the details and the dithering and so on. But they keep that in mind. But the color match, of course, has to be made, and they do that with their color profiles from both machines. But then you are limited to the smallest of the two. Unfortunately, technology progresses, and machines of today have a bigger color gamut than the machines of previous. So if you do that route, then your sampling machine is determining how much color capability of the single pass that you are using. So that's the two different workflows that we see.
I'd like to just expand on that a little bit, because I think it's interesting from an industrial analog printer's perspective as well. So we've seen a lot of digital technology invested in for sampling, but then the production runs are done on the analog rotary printing machines. What solutions are available out there? And this actually comes from a conversation I had at lunch, so I hope somebody's listening. What technologies are out there to ensure that you get the same result on the analog production machine that you've got on the digital sample machine? Is it a software thing? Is it about the inks? Is it about the machine itself? Is there a solution for this at the moment?
Yeah, what we see is that the rotary people, rotary is determining your color gamut, but that's not always true, because sometimes digital color gamut is actually smaller. They accept normally that the image quality in terms of resolution and smoothness is always lower in the rotary, although there's a big push for higher end screens. We see that, and we say it's because of digital. We sell more high-end screens, and we have even developed now new screens for that. There is a high-end software solution that SPG Prints already sells for a long time, which even does the raster simulation. So the rasters that you use to engrave the screens, that you can simulate into the digital file, and then you get a also visibly perfect match. You can go and see those samples at our booth, but that's a limited amount of people that really do it. The majority just takes for granted that the sample is not the same as the production, but color-wise they're more important than image quality-wise. But of course it's a little bit dangerous, because if you're basically saying that you're showing a sample that is more beautiful than the conventional production, and that's the danger that they have.
Yeah. If I can add something from the software side, well, from Inedit software side, we have the technology to simulate certain designs from traditional to digital. So at the moment, our technology is very independent on the type of design that you want to simulate. There are technical limitations in traditional printing. If you have design that they have a lot of overlapping of channels, then it's very complicated to match the same results in digital. But you're printing a lot of spot colors, then it's easier. We have the technology to do that. I would say that a lot of our customers that print, they have a huge production in digital, they print samples on paper, they show the samples on paper to their customers, and then they move the production to fabric or sublimation whatsoever. Actually, we have samples here in our booth. We are doing this kind of samples in our facility here in Barcelona. But yeah, traditional digital is a different type of job. There are more limitations, I would say.
Yeah. Are there any more? Oh.
No.
Yeah, but as you were saying before, people think of digital like the play button, like just print and you get the color that you want.
Yeah, but traditional printing was often very much depending on the skill of the operator. So when the first digital machines came out, they were, if something went wrong, they always blamed immediately the machine. But in many cases it was the operator. But it cannot be the operator, because my operator knows textile already for 100 years. So and they didn't trust that black box that was controlling color. I think today that is different. You also see that the old let's say, dinosaur printers, they are now all retired. So you see a young, almost all, sorry, almost all. But you see the younger generation now coming into the print companies, and that helps to accept technology and understand how software control is an important part of the total quality of your product.
Well, you know, another thing too, from the digital standpoint, is a lot of times the digital sample is the real color. Now, the screen sample that they gave you, they thought was the real color, and it's not.
Yeah.
So you go back, and then it's like, okay, so then to what the panel said, it's the customer perception. So spot colors can be hit. Maintaining them as the substrate changes is difficult, but from a sampling process, it's really not hard to do. But then you got to dial it in to say, well, the customers, what they're requesting and what they're really looking for are two different things.
Yeah.
I saw on this quality issue, I saw a nice example last year with the shirt of the German World Cup football team. For those who you can remember it, it was a white shirt and there were very thin black lines on it. And yeah, it was an Adidas shirt. And I saw the digital sample and also the shirts that the guys wore during the matches. They were digitally printed, but obviously the merchandise was all done with rotary. And then if you make a 30 degrees line on a rotary screen, then the chance that that line is just as nice with straight edges is zero. So actually the merchandise shirt looked awful if you saw the real one.
Well, there's an example of why people should go digital then, I guess. Can't blame it on the shirt, really, but...
if that was true, then Holland would win every year, because then I would make the shirts.
Does anybody else have any questions for the panel?
Improve also here more fineness of the print heads.
If you look at the SPG presentation, they show a 7-year cycle of technology development inkjet, because it's not like Moore's law in semiconductors, that's for sure, because you don't get a doubling every year or two. We're much longer term cycles. So you've seen printheads made by bulk piezo technology, where printheads are made one by one. Well, we've just moved the technology now to new platforms, silicon MEMS manufacturing now. So we're making the printheads on silicon wafers using silicon MEMS technology. So they're actually made in a silicon fab house, just like semiconductors. But then these actuators are brought in, assembled into modules that we sell as printheads. So we're right now we're launching the next platform, the next generation. What is that giving us? It's giving us higher resolutions, densely packed nozzles. It's giving us smaller drops, and the ability to get the cost down. Because the promise of MEMS is also to bring the cost of the printhead down at the same time, because now we can mass manufacture rather than a single assembly line. So we're getting there. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, I must say, looking into the R&D kitchen of printhead manufacturers is very encouraging. I still remember our first generation printheads we had to put in a refrigerator to keep them alive, which was a problem during trade shows, because we had to try to predict when it was going to die, and then 5 hours before that we had to take it out of the refrigerator. And yeah, and if you see what we're doing now, we have a joint presentation on our booth. Then I say, okay, we're still a lot of very promising things ahead. So I'm happy that I still have to work for at least 20 years so that I can enjoy it.
Any other questions before we break for coffee? One over there. The mic's coming for you.
I'm just curious, how closely does ITMA work with the ITMF, and in terms of maybe trying to get governments to encourage the adoption of digital, lobbying things like the environmental benefits? Of course, there is the cost as the key driver, but these kind of benefits will mean more to some of the age groups that some of the presenters talk to going forward, because they're much more conscious about it. It's more topical.
I can't say how closely they work together. I know there is some communication between those organisations. I would probably highlight the European Technology Platform and the textile segment of that, which is looking at Industry 4.0 and smart textile kind of developments which fit with the digital textile printing elements of the supply chain. I think there could be a lot more of that than we currently see. I don't know if any of you guys have any experience with that
I wonder
development.
how if we need to be encouraged, because there's no way that you can now develop anything in the digital world without being immediately asked if you are complying to all kind of standards. And so the zero discharge hazardous chemical standard is now becoming very popular. The brands are also very keen on it, that everything is sustainable and ethical and so on. So I think there is no way to play dirty games in this industry. Yeah, maybe on a very local, obscure level, but not on an international level. And on the other side, I don't think that a government will get into the discussion whether they should advise if you go digital or rotary. I think that's there are other drivers than governments who do that.
Okay, well, if there's not any other pressing questions, any hands in case there is something? No? Then I'll thank the panellists. Those are all great answers, and thank you for your questions as well. And we'll break for coffee, which is just outside at the back. But can we give a round of applause?